Hello and welcome to this episode of The People's Report, News for the Left, brought to you by Solidarity Television. Today is October 29th, 2025. Today I'm here with Riley and Frankie. How much of your money did Trump gift to Millet? Is Zohran Mamdani a commie? Why does AI think you'll need a concealed carry permit for your Doritos? Would you believe an oil company if they tried to tell you that drilling for oil was green? Would you rather pay for a new family car or your family's health? How much can ICE get from your phone without a warrant? Will a socialist president usher in a one-state solution for Ireland? As the UAE goes after new mineral deposits, who's paying the blood price? If there's a ceasefire, why did Netanyahu just order a barrage of airstrikes? If Starbucks goes on strikes, will you cross the picket line? A cup of coffee could only cost your soul. Why can we see pools of Sudanese blood from space? All these subjects and more in tonight's episode of The People's Report. Timestamps are in the episode description.
Well, don't feel so devastated if you're feeling alienated, because it turns out you're not alone. Just open up your heart, let the revolution start, and grab that megaphone. Solidarity, solidarity, I need you and you need me. Solidarity, 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 solidarity.
The political economy of Make Argentina Default Again, October 20th, 2025 via Jacobin. During the recent U.S. government shutdown, President Donald Trump announced a $20 billion bailout for Argentina. The arrangement appears to serve as a personal favor to Argentine President Javier Milei and may represent an effort to internationalize the MAGA movement, Make America Great Again movement, rather than a conventional economic agreement. Far from stabilizing Argentina's fragile economy, the bailout risks deepening the country's dependence on foreign capital and increasing the likelihood of yet another sovereign default in the coming years. Argentina's crisis, marked by inflation, capital flight, and recurring debt traps, reflects structural weaknesses that have persisted for decades. This bailout tightens Washington's financial and political grip on Buenos Aires, highlighting the need for a progressive international alliance capable of countering these destructive cycles and defending the needs of working people across borders. Millions of Argentines suffer the periodic devaluations of the peso currency that trigger inflation and recession, hitting the most vulnerable hardest. Dollar disease, or DD, is an economic phenomenon where the national currency lacks public confidence as a store of value due to recurrent and severe inflationary periods. As a result, the demand for the US dollar remains high and is highly sensitive to any economic or political event. In the post-war period, Latin American economies regularly faced balance of payment problems. Import growth rates tended to be higher than export growth rates because of limited industrialization, diversification, and dependence on imported intermediate goods. While Argentina shared these dynamics with the rest of the region, it also developed specific characteristics that justify calling its condition the dollar disease. In the 1990s, Argentina implemented a fixed exchange rate pegged to the US dollar, a policy that ultimately ended in huge financial, economic, and social turmoil in 2001. In the aftermath, Argentina's financial sector remained stable, but weak in its capacity to provide credit to the private sector. Despite subsequent years of growth, the preference for saving and investing in US dollar-denominated assets has persisted. In fact, Argentine residents hold an estimated $20 billion in accounts abroad. Dealing with DD requires broad political and social consensus to preserve and rebuild the national currency, something Argentina has lacked for the last 25 years. Progressive governments answer to DD by implementing exchange rate regulations and limiting access to US dollars, while deploying import substitution strategies. Neoliberal governments, on the other hand, prefer to open exchange rate markets and finance the demand of US dollars with external debt. In between, millions of Argentines suffer the periodic devaluations of the peso currency that trigger inflation and recession, hitting the most vulnerable hardest. On top of this, external debt has typically come with austerity measures and deregulation agendas, further limiting access to housing, education, and health services for the majority. So we've cut off food stamps, basically, to the American public. Mm-hmm. We're not paying our federal workers. But we have $20 billion to give to Argentina to bail them out of the disaster that Javier Milei put them in, which apparently was enough to propel him into office for a second time.
Yeah.
Corrupt politics be like.
Came out with 41% of the vote, was able to secure victory with it. The Peronists were only able to secure 24.5%, apparently. And his party won 13 of the Senate seats out of the 24 seats. So yeah, unfortunately, not a total sweep, but was able to secure power. There was the election in Buenos Aires a couple of months ago that was showing, not great signs for Milei's party. But I guess going into the election, being able to secure those soybean deals with China, part of what I'm mentioning is, there's the tariff war that Trump is going through, and through that tariff war, China has decided to buy zero soybeans from the U.S., where we used to be their number one supplier. And instead, China went and is buying soybeans from Argentina. Yeah.
So, and from some perspectives, they're getting a double handout from the United States, both direct with our cash, and then also by being handed on a silver platter business.
Yep, a contract with China for the soybeans.
And it seems that this is only going to, the bailout here is only going to reinforce the weak Argentine economy and help crash their money again in the not too distant future. The dollar disease, as they're calling it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that before, but I thought the journalist in the article made a convincing case for why it should be called the dollar disease. $20 billion, I think Argentina has in dollars.
Yeah, US dollars. Yeah,
and foreign offshore accounts. So it's the same playbook that Trump was going after with the Doge. With CPAC this year, they Milei came and handed a golden, or was it the other way around? Elon handed it to Milei.
I don't remember.
There was the exchange of the golden chainsaw, in order to slash government spending. But inflation's been basically just as bad under Milei as it was beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the wool being pulled over people's eyes again and again.
Yeah. And the Argentine people, of course, are going to suffer for it again and again, just as the American people are going to suffer for the foolish economic policy of the Trump administration and his priors.
Yeah, and how it's being structured, this $20 billion deal is a currency swap. So we're going to be trading $20 billion US dollars for the equivalent of Argentinian pesos. Dollars are good on the world market because, international trade is done on dollars. Mm-hmm. Generally, when you have another country's currency, it's only good for buying goods and services from that country. You generally don't accept, wons outside of China, or yens outside of Japan.
Well, you accept wons in Korea too.
Yeah, well, different type of won. But there are different types of dollars, or rupees are, another name for currencies around the world. But yeah, so it's only setting us up to buy Argentinian assets, which would go to further helping out the Argentinian economy, helping give that artificial inflation or buoying to their national economy. But I wonder how much of the 20 billion will be skimmed off by Milei or one of his family members.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
Yeah. I mean, I have no, theoretically speaking, I have no problem with helping to bail out countries that are hurting. I mean, the Argentine people are not doing very well. And being able to step in and assist would normally be a pretty good thing. But the fact that we are doing it by helping to destroy the economy, helping to boost terrible political and economic reforms in the country, and while expressly neglecting the American people over and over and over again, it just seems like the article said, it's done as a personal favor to a guy who is a little bit too much like Elon Musk and not enough like an actual leader of a country.
Javier Milei's got like such a crazy backstory. He has like his like alter ego, his supervillain, or who he calls a superhero, or whatever, Captain ANCAP.
Oh my God.
He like dresses up in like a whole like costume, and
I saw that. I didn't know the context of it. I kind of thought maybe it was fake.
No, it's a thing that he did multiple times.
Oh my goodness.
Oh boy.
You know what? And I thought the United States was a joke. Imagine being an actual anarcho-capitalist in real life.
And like trying to run a government on these principles.
Yeah. From Daily Worker to Daily Show, communists back in the national conversation. October 23rd, 2025 via People's World. Spotlights aren't typically red, but that's the color they're glowing this week as the Communist Party USA steps onto the national stage in a way not witnessed in several years. Within the space of just 72 hours, CPUSA found itself on the lips of top right-wing politicians and on the television screens of viewers watching one of the country's most popular comedy news shows. This weekend, in an attempt to undermine the credibility of the massive October 18th No King's Day protests, leading Republicans, led by Senator Ted Cruz and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, alleged baselessly that the Communist Party was the master manipulator of the demonstrations that brought out 7 million people to oppose the policies of President Donald Trump. Then on Monday evening, the Reds became a late-night TV feature when The Daily Show's Desi Lydic interviewed CPUSA co-chair Joe Sims at party headquarters in Manhattan. In the segment, Sims and Lydic talked about Zohran Mamdani's run for New York mayor, red baiting, and, in the words of producers, how we're using the C word all wrong. The CPUSA has been a fixture in the U.S. labor movement and on the American political scene for over a century, earning far more than the proverbial 15 minutes of fame. Outside of some pivotal moments, though, the CPUSA has often been completely ignored by the mainstream corporate media, or treated like a political oddity or some Cold War-era historical hangover. With opposition to the fascist direction of the White House growing, however, interest in the ideas of socialism is on the rise. While Trump has been talking about Marxism, communism, and the radical left for years, the attack by GOP leaders this week was the first time lately that the CPUSA has gotten specific mention. The anti-communist smears appear to be gaining little traction outside of the MAGA faithful, though. Mainstream media barely paid any attention to the Republicans' fear-mongering. When it came to the Daily Show segment with Sims, the right's rhetoric earned nothing but ridicule. The humorous exchange transitions into discussions about distinctions between democratic socialists and communists, the need to replace capitalism, left electoral strategy, and popular misconceptions of communism. But between the jokes, Sims makes some solid points about why Mamdani and other progressive leaders are often accused of being communists. Mamdani champions affordability, Sims said, and any effort to put forward an idea of a more equitable distribution of wealth is labeled socialist or communist, in an effort to just dismiss it out of hand. It's called red baiting. The goal of anti-communism, he argued, is just to divide people.
Everybody see what's going on with Mamdani in New York City?
Oh, yeah.
So ever since he ran, people have been coming out saying that Zohran Mamdani is somehow a communist.
Trump's new favorite line.
Yeah. As he likes to call Zohran his little communist. Very, very weird. And I find this assessment of Mamdani to be very weird. And as a member of the Communist Party myself, I can't possibly find any policy that Mamdani has that would align him with anything of the Communist Party of the United States, or any Communist Party anywhere in the world. What I do see, however, is a more FDR era policy and economic platform that would return us back to a state prior to World War II.
Yeah.
I think it's much more than that. We'll have a scripted video on the channel in the next day or so. Maybe it came up already. Check the feed. Talking a little bit more about Mamdani's policies and like what it means for the electoral left in the United States. But I think there's more of the inside-outside, you know, like Mamdani being, you know, not just like a DSA endorsed candidate, but like being a cadre member of DSA, you know, a member of like currently socialists in office for the statewide delegation in New York City. I think that there's a lot more benefits than just like the typical FDR social democracy that he has offered. But that being said, I did watch the interview on The Daily Show with Joe Sims. I thought that was great. You know, he was, I think he gave some like great answers, but was still like able to like, you know, not be too serious, you know. He was a comedy show after all.
Yeah.
So I thought he did a good job at trying to like distinguish a little bit the differences between, you know, communism and democratic socialism. And so.
Yeah, it's like one of the notable facts of how DSA works and how democratic socialism is in our country. DSA is not a political party. DSA is working towards one, and while that is great for the left, with the Communist Party, we do not feel that the Democratic Party is any way savable, or should be saved, or any logical reason as to why we would even consider it. So with CPUSA, we are acknowledging that, you know, socialism is the way forward, but we cannot envision it through the Democratic Party, and I feel that is a notable difference between CPUSA and DSA. However, we should all be working together moving forward into coalition, whether it's with you know, DSA, CPUSA, or with Working Families Party or PSL, the Greens, whatever the way forward. Dmitriev had put it the best that the only way to defeat the fascist forces is with a united front.
Yeah, but our options are barbarism and socialism, and that's it. And you know, we might have our differences on being, you know, communists, being socialists, being anarchists, but and I don't want to get into big tent politics or electoralism at all.
That's what DSA is.
Yeah, we're not going to vote our way out of this, but you know, like you said, the united front. We're not we can either end up like the Protestant church, where we're like 50 billion different denominations that all hate each other, or I'm saying, or we can be like the Catholic Church. We don't want to be like the Catholic Church, or we can be, you know, one united organization with various branches that might not be perfectly aligned, but are overwhelmingly aligned towards a shared goal of a socialist future.
So absolutely.
I think a big part of it is the inside-outside strategy, and I think that DSA is like specifically, like uniquely positioned at this moment in order to take advantage of it. You know, the inside, you know, being the electoral politics game, you know, running candidates, you know, sometimes in Democratic parties, other times not, to be able to, you know, take that power that you build on the outside. So like the outside strategy is like the mutual aid, the community organizing, and like you use that in order to like build power. And then what do? When you start building power, you take power. And like so like you have to have that on the ground grassroots level of like organizing in your community around, you know, ICE or immigrant rights, indigenous rights, you know, so many things that like we organize on the ground for, but then taking that and then like taking that collective power that you've built up and that you've secured and using that in order to secure like more permanent wins through the like electoral strategy. And I think that like DSA is uniquely positioned in order to play that well.
Yeah.
I think going back to more Mamdani in particular, and of course the criticisms of him, I've been seeing online people complaining that Mamdani, because of course he's Muslim, he's a socialist, he eats rice with his hands, which first of all, who gives a shit? I could not eat rice without a fork personally, but it's significantly less bothersome to me.
At least only a spoon.
Yeah, or I see a person eating rice with their hands, I'm like, I wouldn't do that. I see a person eating a burger or a pizza with a knife and a fork, hell no,
Sacrilege.
get out. But that aside, I'm seeing a criticism that they're like, we're gonna have the social or the communist caliphate of New York, which just drives me nuts because there's already a synthesis of communism and Islam, and we see it in the Ba'athist Party. But if these people were smart and criticized, they'd be calling it the New York Jamahariya, but they don't know that, and that would be an infinitely funnier and more accurate description of what they think is going to happen, what they think is going to happen. They don't know that word.
Man, I can tell you from living in an Asian family, we pretty much eat everything with our hands.
Yeah.
It's commonplace. And finding this most simplistic thing to hyper fixate on, like Republicans don't fucking line up outside of a barbecue joint in St. Louis, Missouri or Dallas freaking Texas to get their whole face covered in brisket.
Yeah.
So come on. This whole nitpicking of he eats with his hands or he's Ugandan or this, that, and the other is just the flood of racism for a candidate that actually has a pathway to win and actually means business.
Yeah, and like the article said, a lot of this is just meant to divide people. Mm-hmm. The rice thing is just a very distinctive behavior that can separate people. Everybody knows some brown guy, especially if they live in New York. Mm-hmm. Around here, if they're not Hispanic, Muslim, or Italian. Mm-hmm. And so, okay, that's a little bit harder to draw a line around. But, if you live in a place, unless you live in an area with where you're engaging a lot with Middle mm-hmm. Eastern or South Asian people, eating rice with your hands is not something that's going to be familiar to you.
Right. So
it's just obviously foreign, and it's foreign enough to cause a separation. Not that it's important or that it matters. I mean, what food is New York known for? Pizza and hot dogs. Never seen anyone of sense eat those right out of their hands.
So on topic, this isn't the first time Mamdani was tagged for a picture of his food. Earlier in the year, he posted a picture of him eating a burrito on the subway. But in that case, he was using a knife and fork, But
I'm not voting for him now.
Wait, because you're on the subway, you gotta eat, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't really want to touch it when you're on the subway.
Good point. You already touched everything.
You had the handrail, you're already on the train. So there's a picture of him on a Q train with the old style seats. Kind of L-shaped. There's these seats that you can sit and then use another seat as a table. And there was a picture of him eating like this with the paper bag on the bottom and then the food and then the tray. So there were several layers. But he was getting attacked for eating on the subway. But I was born and raised in Brooklyn. You eat on the subway. You grab something to eat before getting on the train because it's going to take you 45 minutes to get wherever you're going. You don't have time to stop anywhere else, so you're going to eat on the train while commuting.
Well, you don't want to touch the train and then your food, yeah.
Exactly.
So he eats with utensils, it's a problem. He eats without utensils, it's a problem. It seems like the common denominator here is Mamdani.
Yeah.
There's definitely clearly things that Mamdani can be criticized for and analyzed about. Like his views on Maduro and the president of Cuba, saying, these people are dictators which is just contributing to the manufacturing of consent for Trump's war. And then she...
Did you say that about Cuba?
Yeah, I think so.
So did?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah. He referred to the heads of both Cuba and Venezuela as dictators. And to say this is not only manufacturing consent, it's also racist. And it's contributing to what is already taking place with the Nobel Peace Prize going to a Zionist complicit in genocide rather than the people who actually deserve it. So there's definitely worthy things to ding Zohran on, eating with his hands or being Ugandan or just looking a different way or thinking a different way is not one of them.
Yeah. And on those lines too, people have been criticizing him for being a Muslim. They're always going to do that. And I keep seeing stuff like, oh, I can't believe that after 9/11, they're going to let a Muslim run New York City, as if nobody's heard of history before.
Right. But what does the identity of a person from Uganda have to do with CIA assets that went rogue in Afghanistan? So it's just this blanket, oh, he's of this group, so we don't like Mamdani, while Kash Patel is literally of the same exact demographics as Zohran, but of course Kash Patel is a saint. So the only problem with Zohran is he's making the city affordable, and that's it. All of this vitriol over 2% of taxes for billionaires.
Yeah.
Yeah, that quote that he says, he's been saying more and more recently, is that like the billionaires are spending more money trying to like fight him in the election than he would end up like charging them if he gets into office.
Right.
Well, hey, then when he wins next Tuesday, they're going to be paying double.
Well, if you're in New York, don't take this as like you don't got to do anything.
Yeah.
Don't take it as like, oh, it's a surefire victory. Make sure you get out and vote, and you get other people to get out and vote. Because of all the criticisms that you may have of Mamdani, infinitely better than Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah, and Curtis Sliwa, but almost anyone's better than Cuomo at this point. And like we said, we're not going to vote our way out of it, but it takes 5 minutes. I mean, I don't know how long voting takes in New York. It might take a lot longer than 5 minutes. But it takes like 5 minutes out of your day. You might as well. It's the one little thing you can do. Right. And for all of our criticisms of voting, like it's not enough to say don't do it. Might as well. U.S. student handcuffed after AI system apparently mistook bag of chips for gun. October 24th, 2025, via The Guardian. An artificial intelligence system apparently mistook a high school student's bag of Doritos for a firearm and called local police to tell them the people was armed. Taki Allen was sitting with friends on Monday night outside Kenwood High School in Baltimore and eating a snack when police officers with guns approached him. At first, I didn't know where they were going until they started walking towards me with guns, talking about, "Get on the ground!" And I was like, "What?" Allen told WBAL-TV 11 News television station. Allen said they made him get on his knees, handcuffed, and searched him, finding nothing. Then they showed him a copy of the picture that had triggered the alert. "I was just holding a Doritos bag. It was 2 hands and 1 finger out. They said it looked like a gun," Allen said. Baltimore County high schools last year began using a gun detection system using school cameras and AI to detect potential weapons. If it spots something it believes to be suspicious, it sends an alert to the school and law enforcement officials. In a letter to school families obtained by WBAL-TV 11 News, the school wrote, "We understand how upsetting this was for the individual that was searched, as well as the other students who witnessed the incident. Our counselors will provide direct support to the students who were involved in this incident and are also available to speak with any student who may need support." Baltimore County Police told the outlet, "Officers assigned to Precinct 11 Essex responded to Kenwood High School following a report of a suspicious person with a weapon. Once on scene, the person was searched and it was determined the subject was not in possession of any weapons." Lamont Davis, Allen's grandfather, told the television station, "Nobody wants this to happen to their child. No one wants this to happen.
So AI surveillance has been making its way into our lives in more and more ways, as this article exemplified. Schools, license plate readers now have AI in it. They'll read not only a license plate, but any bumper stickers you have on them.
Jesus.
There's an AI company called Flock AI that's been getting a lot of attention recently, where they contract with municipal governments in order to provide AI cameras around cities. They've gone back and forth, had to recently, delete that they use facial recognition on their website. So it is of little surprise to me that one of these AI companies has fucked up so bad that they, just assumed that a student had a gun from the Doritos bag. Like, not surprised at all.
It's insane.
Yeah.
The fact that you can just walk around with a phone and get seen as, having a weapon, or eating a snack, or getting a drink. You do anything with your hands that's not ordinary, or maybe even not be armed, and this AI says, "Oh, you are," and that's your life.
Yeah.
That's your freedom. And for what? Because AI can't get it fucking right.
I mean, holding a bag of chips, I think, is pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
Not for nothing. It also sends awful memories of 2014.
Yeah.
With Trayvon Martin, a bag of Skittles, and an Arizona can getting mistaked for a gun and then being shot by George Zimmerman.
Would have been a huge fucking gun too. But yeah, and how many people have been killed by police? How many specifically young black men have been killed by police under the auspicion of having a weapon, and they never do?
Was it 1,000 people a year
Yeah.
in the U.S.?
Yeah. So the fact that a computer can call the police on someone because it thinks that they have a weapon, and the police can very realistically go out and kill them over something that a computer did, and the computer will never be held responsible for that.
It can't.
Or the people that programmed it or licensed it to the... Yeah.
And we all know that these AI are honestly kind of dog shit. I mean, there's been the screenshot going around, you can just look at it, I think it might have fixed by now, where if you were to Google, was 1995 30 years ago, it would say no, and then do the math and say, no, 1995 is not 30 years ago, it was 30 years ago. And it's like these programs are just not good at what they do, at least not publicly, and clearly not privately. And it's quite literally putting children's lives at risk.
Yeah. Well, we can see, if you look at Palestine and the lavender, the lavender system that was used to target folks in Palestine for air strikes. The civilian death toll rate was, 80%.
Yeah, and that's according to the IDF.
Exactly. It's another way of removing accountability. Similar to, United Healthcare using AI in order to, go through claims, so that it doesn't have to be a human that's accountable to it. It could just be a system. But we know that these systems, just any sort of system, from a leftist analysis, has those ingrained biases in them that allow for the perpetuation of white supremacy and our other internalized biases.
Yeah.
So, it's just more of the same, really.
Yeah. Musk proves just how easily AI can be tampered with how they're
Mecha Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. Their AI system, it can go from telling truthful historical analysis to being a fascist tool.
There's a white genocide in South Africa.
Yeah. And we literally saw what happened with this administration moving in people from South Africa on the premise of this white genocide as perpetrated by AI.
Yeah.
So we're literally having policies and politics itself being manipulated by artificial intelligence.
Well,
that is not democracy.
It's manipulated by the people controlling the artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Like that Mecha Hitler was like coded in because Grok was being too woke.
Yeah.
So Elon didn't like it. So like the white genocide South Africa thing was happening, before it was picked up by AI, but it was, the typical right-wing.
Well, it wasn't
operatives.
happening, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
The
It
theory
was being
about it.
perpetuated
Yeah.
by right-wing reactionary operatives. So like there was information for it to pull from by that point. Like it's just the next best word guesser. You start putting in like words that were spoken or typed before, and it's going to find that pattern and it's going to like replicate it.
Yeah. And anything that requires a machine can never be held accountable. And so anything that requires accountability cannot be delegated to a machine. I think that's been IBM's thing like in the 90s. It's one of their ads. So look how far we've gotten from then.
Yeah, threat is, or AI is very much a threat to democracy, to national security, to the safety and well-being of the people, and the safety of the planet. And the more money that we keep investing into AI, and the closer the bubble gets to this proverbial needle, it's game over.
Solidarity TV is an independent, grassroots news organization. So consider supporting us by becoming a member at solidaritytelevision.org. TotalEnergies misled customers with green claims, French court rules. October 23, 2025, via Politico. Oil giant TotalEnergies misled its customers and the general public when it claimed to be a leading actor in the transition to green energy, a French court ruled today. Following its rebranding from Total to TotalEnergies in 2021, the French oil producer launched an advertising campaign stating that the company had the ambition to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. It claimed to be a major player in the energy transition and to put sustainable development at the heart of our strategy, our products, and our operations to contribute to the well-being of populations in line with the Sustainable Development Goals defined by the United Nations. But the court found that TotalEnergies had engaged in misleading commercial practices by disseminating claims on its website which made the company's operations appear greener than they were, a practice known as greenwashing. According to the court, these claims were likely to mislead consumers about the scope of the group's environmental commitments. The court ordered TotalEnergies to stop spreading the misleading claims within 1 month or face a €10,000 fine per day of delay. The case against the oil major was brought in 2022 by a group of green NGOs, including Friends of the Earth France and Greenpeace France, with the support of the legal charity Client Earth. We hope that the court's decision will help shed light on the reality of Total's activities, which continue to expand oil and gas operations, Juliette Renaud, a member of Friends of the Earth France, said in a statement. It is time to force Total and the other majors to comply with scientists' recommendations to put an end to the development of new fossil fuel projects, she added. TotalEnergies noted in a statement that the ruling dismissed most of the claims relating to its communications on the role of natural gas or biofuels in the energy transition. It added that it would modify the green claims displayed on its website that were singled out in the ruling. The company has 2 months to appeal the decision. Is anyone really surprised that yet again an oil company is making stuff up in order to continue marketing and in order to pass themselves off as being green?
Say it ain't so.
I know. This is the first time this has ever happened.
Did it happen to come out of France?
It did.
Oh no.
Yeah. French oil companies. When's the last time you knew of anyone drilling for oil in France?
Yeah.
I mean, they might.
I don't know.
I guess I wouldn't know, actually.
Most of
they had oil fields in France.
Yeah,
what I'm
because
saying.
I know they have like oil refineries and extractors like across the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know about any like in France, like proper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice news.
But so it seems that this is just another. I guess I probably should check. But it seems like just more, colonization at play, basically. Yep. But these oil companies and have been pulling this off for a while. I mean, that's a whole recycling scam.
Yeah.
Has been oil companies trying to get people more comfortable with, and even plastics. Preferring to use single-use plastics, and it's all in order to pass off oil consumption as being good for the planet, or not as bad for the planet as the public might generally otherwise think. I mean, we had a similar situation a few weeks ago with a nuclear power plant that got shut down, or when we were discussing the nuclear power plant in New York that got shut down and then was replaced by coal. So it's just, these extractive industries are terrible for the environment, terrible for the public, and just straight up lie to the public about how terrible they are.
Yeah. And it's also not that hard to refine oil and fuel into cleaner energy. I was just seeing videos starting last month, actually. There's a guy in Georgia, I think it is. He was able to create this whole system where he just feeds it plastic, breaks it down, and turns it into diesel fuel. And it while there's the possibility that it's got carcinogens in it and whatnot, so his process will need refinement. It shows that his method works, and then we have all of these corporations that prioritize the profit rather than the functionality.
I think you're falling into the same trap as the article mentions. Like, diesel's not green.
No.
It's falling back into those same cycles of reduce, reuse, recycle. It's reusing the single-use plastics and, turning them through a heavily, I'm sure, energy and intensive process, turning that back into polycarbons in order to then turn that into fuel. It's possibly, I don't know, better than single-use plastic just sitting in a landfill. But, the big issues that, climate change and these extractive industries for energy purposes lead to is the warming of the climate, which diesel fuel is still going to do. I'm not sure, what the primary particulate matter, that's not the word, greenhouse gas is a better word, for diesel is, if it's like carbon dioxide or methane. But like methane is a lot more potent of a greenhouse gas. It like traps heat a lot better, but it doesn't last as long as carbon dioxide. So like there are, some benefits, some, not benefits.
Drawbacks?
Yeah, for each of the fuel types, but.
Well, the obvious solution is, not just green energy and even nuclear, but also lifestyle and changes that reduce our reliance on the production and consumption of fossil fuels, namely the reduction of the use of private motor vehicles in favor of mass public transit, ideally rail and electric. Electric rail.
Electrified rail, yeah.
Because it reduces pollution from not just, general transit costs like gas and diesel, even electric. It reduces the demand on lithium and other such precious metals that we usually get by straight up robbing countries.
Yeah.
Like Sudan, which we're going to talk about shortly, and the Congo. But
and
it
Ukraine.
also...
And Ukraine.
Yeah, and Ukraine, yeah. But also, it reduces pollution from tire waste. It reduces pollution and waste from road manufacture and maintenance. And it just straight up makes our cities cleaner, our air cleaner, our environment cleaner.
Safer to walk.
Yeah, everything. So just getting out of, and it also reduces crime, reduces anti-public behavior such as racism and homophobia. I mean, you want to talk about bringing people together, literally put them all together in a big box for, 20 minutes a day. It reduces crime. I think I might have already said that, but it's important to reiterate because that's everyone's big fear about public engagement. And, the criminals, which don't really exist. And you would know that if you took the train or walked. Sidewalk ballet. I'm getting really into it now, so I'm going to cut myself off there. But yeah, just reducing our reliance on extraction and on wasteful and harmful products like fossil fuels is essential. Not to mention the way that fossil fuels and the quest for them have destroyed countries. I mean, we already discussed some of the few that we're getting from lithium, but Iraq was obliterated for oil interests.
Yeah.
Libya was obliterated for oil interests. Venezuela, we're gearing up to have justification to obliterate them for oil interests. We killed 1.5 million people in Iraq. We killed untold people in Libya. Almost every single rifle being fired against the African people out in the hands of Al-Qaeda and other such groups are straight up looted from Libya after the United States obliterated their country. So all the victims of the conflicts in the Sahel are killed by U.S. oil interests in Libya, for example.
I think the craziest part about the article is the fine is $10,000 a day.
10,000 euros a day.
Euros.
Which is a little bit. It's like I think it's
1.2 or something like.
Yeah, $12,000 a day or so.
Yeah, which is I'm sure nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's the cost of doing business. It's a slap on the wrist for an energy supplier, because I think they limited it to a month in the article. Is that what it said?
Mm-hmm.
So
they have 1 month. Yeah.
30 days, times 10,000 is 300,000. Yeah.
I think it starts after 1 month. I think if they have 1 month to fix it, and then every day that they don't after that, they have to pay. So it could go on indefinitely, but they have 30 days to change a website.
Yeah.
Or they pay a couple bucks. A family health insurance plan now costs nearly $27,000. Why is insurance so expensive? October 22nd, 2025 via USA Today. If it seems like your health insurance bill is rising faster than your paycheck, you're not mistaken. The average cost for a family health insurance plan offered through the workplace was $26,993 in 2025, an increase of 6% from a year ago, according to the annual Employer Health Benefits Survey released October 22nd by KFF, a health policy nonprofit. By comparison, workers' wages grew 4%, and inflation is up 2.7% from a year ago. Other surveys project steeper price hikes are on the way for 2026. Working-age Americans who get health insurance through their jobs will see the largest health cost increases next year since 2010, according to Mercer, a benefits consultant. The rise in the cost of health care and health insurance premiums are a challenge to both employers who underwrite the bulk of the tab and workers who contribute through payroll deductions. With the average family insurance plan approaching $27,000 per year, it's like buying a car every year just to cover a family of 4, said Matthew Ray, Associate Director of KFF's Healthcare Marketplace Program. It's an astronomical amount of money. As a government shutdown debate in Washington, D.C. focuses on the millions of consumers who might lose lucrative taxpayer subsidies to Affordable Health Care Act health insurance, there's been less attention on how most Americans get coverage. Nearly 24 million Americans get health insurance through the ACA federal and state marketplaces. About 154 million working-age adults and their families get coverage through the workplace, which remains the backbone of the nation's health insurance system. KFF reported trends in the employer health insurance benefits based on a survey of 1,862 non-federal public and private employers. In 2025, workers paid $6,850 for family plans, while employers paid most of the bill, $20,143, the survey said. 6% rise in family health insurance this year is slightly less than the 7% hikes in 23 and 24. Over the past 5 years, the price tag of a family health insurance plan jumped by 26%. In addition to prescription drug spending, companies with 200 or more workers cited other factors behind higher insurance costs, which rise when spending on medical care increases. The survey said 30% of employers named chronic disease, 26% cited higher use of services, and 22% said the hospital prices accelerated the cost of health insurance. Workers at smaller companies face higher deductibles. About 3 in 10 workers are now enrolled in high-deductible health plans that shift some costs to workers. The average deductible was $1,886, which means consumers must pay that much before coverage kicks in. Deductibles have jumped 17% since 2020, the survey said. Small companies are much more likely to charge a higher deductible. The average deductible at companies with fewer than 200 workers was $2,631, nearly $1,000 more than what larger companies charged. High deductible plans are often paired with health savings accounts that allow workers to contribute pre-tax wages to an account that covers medical bills and other qualifying health expenses. About 2 in 3 companies require workers to make a co-payment when visiting a primary care doctor. The average copay was $27 for a primary care doctor and $45 for a specialist. And about 1 in 5 companies required workers to pay a percentage of the bill. Ray says there is a tremendous amount of variation across employers, so workers might see plans that are far different from the averages spelled out in KFF's survey. Things can look really different depending on where you work or where your spouse works, he said.
What would you say would be a fair price for a 4-door sedan, newish kind of car? Like, what would you say is the fairest MSRP price?
$7,000. That's what I'm shopping for right now for my new sedan. That's what I'd pay.
Like a blue book value?
Yeah.
That's a little high from what typically, but newish, yeah, maybe 7,000, 10,000.
Could you believe it that insurance premiums now for families are running about $27,000? Who in the hell is going to be able to afford a $27,000 health care premium when most people can't even afford a new car that costs more than $12,000? This is insanity. This is extortion, and it is doing nothing but putting people's lives at risk.
Oh yeah, last 2 times I've needed urgent medical care, I just didn't have the money for it. I mean, I straight don't have health care, and then I just was asked to pay out of pocket, and couldn't afford it. So.
Yeah, similar boat. I think we can trace a lot of this explosion in healthcare spending to the Affordable Care Act and Obama in 2008 by not moving on a single payer and whipping Joe Lieberman, I almost said Manchin.
Yeah, why not?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Rotating villain from
Totally
voting for a
chill.
single payer option. There's plenty of them here.
Yeah.
Joe Biden, Joe Lieberman, Joe Manchin.
Joe Mama. I'm sorry.
'90s rewind.
I'm sorry.
So with the Affordable Care plan, the biggest change that it did, what it was able to provide was subsidies for working class people in order to be able to get health insurance. Since then, that subsidy, as when you typically throw money into the market, it gets gobbled up by the corporations at the top of the industry. So all those subsidy dollars end up going into the pockets of healthcare providers, not even providers, healthcare insurers, so like United Healthcare and the ilk. So, for the last 20 years or so, we've seen an out-of-step increase in healthcare prices across the board. But where this is really coming to heads is now with the government shutdown. The Republican-controlled government is deciding that people don't need health insurance. They have moved to strip away the provisions from the Affordable Care Act. So not only are we seeing the typical increase from year over year in healthcare prices and premiums, but we're also seeing the removal of those subsidies, which are causing these numbers to skyrocket, and totally putting it out of reach for many Americans. So we could have tackled this 30 years ago in the 90s, with Bill Clinton. We could have tackled this 20 years ago, or nearly 20 years ago with Obama. But they decided to keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
And I really think that this just illustrates the importance and the need for Medicare for All type system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, what you were saying, these subsidies that are meant to help lower the costs paid by the working class are not subsidies, are never subsidizing the working class. They're always subsidizing the ruling class.
Profits.
They're always straight up a gift to the ruling class. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of universal basic income nationally across the board without some serious reforms. Because that extra $1,000 a month isn't a subsidy for me, it's a gift to my landlord.
Mm-hmm.
Or Walmart.
Yeah. It just straight up robs people blind.
Yeah, it gives them the ability to raise prices.
Mm-hmm.
All of our insurances are effectively funded by tax money, and if we're paying $27,000 plus for a healthcare premium, our tax revenue is being held hostage. There's just no other which way to look at it.
And the amount that we're paying in healthcare is not even reflected by the quality of healthcare we're receiving. I mean, ask literally any black woman who goes to maternity care.
It's a shame.
There's like 68 out of 100,000 die in the United States, compared to like 24, 22 for white women.
Which is still too high.
Yeah, 2 in the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
2 out of every 100,000 successful births results in a fatality in the Czech Republic, and it's 68 out of 100,000 if you're a black woman in America. So, what are we paying all this healthcare premiums for? It's not to help our neighbors. It's not to help us. Countries like the Czech Republic, for all their flaws, do have public health care, and they're knocking it out of the park, at the very least, by maternal mortality metrics. Cuba is better than us. Russia is better than us. China's better than us.
Yeah, I mean, there's like traditional Chinese medicine that is a really good alternative to conventional healthcare, and it is covered by most insurances. But even that is getting insanely expensive. You can't just walk into a clinic without expecting to pay at least $75 or more for basic acupuncture. So no matter what avenue we are looking at here, our healthcare is drying up fast, and it's all for someone's profit.
Hey, if you like this show, continue to support us by following us on Instagram or on YouTube at Solidarity Television, or listen to our podcast anywhere podcasts are produced. ICE intensifies surveillance of immigrants with facial recognition programs, human tracking, and social media monitoring, October 21st, 2025, via El País. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, is ramping up its surveillance capabilities to advance the government's immigration agenda on an unprecedented scale. According to the federal spending site usaspending.gov, the agency signed contractual obligations in September for a $1.4 billion order, the highest in 18 years, for the acquisition of new technologies such as an iris scanning app they plan to use in the field, spyware that they can remotely hack smartphones, and location software that can track phone activity without a warrant, including nearly all social media platforms. The plan has drawn criticism from Democratic members of Congress, civil rights advocates, and former officials who claim that these programs could be used to attack free expression protected by the First Amendment. In this context, Donald Trump ordered an investigation into Antifa, a designated domestic terror organization that, in his words, demands the overthrow of the United States government, law enforcement, and our legal system. The White House has not presented evidence that the violent attacks against Trump supporters or the federal agency are the works of this group, rather than the individual actors. Added to all this is the tender for the launch of social media monitoring centers in Williston, Vermont, and Santa Ana, California, which seek to expand the agency's anti-immigrant hunt by collecting data on its targets. The plan, which is subject to change, includes tracking accounts on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, Reddit, WhatsApp, YouTube, Pinterest, Tumblr, Instagram, Flickr, MySpace, and Google+. ICE indicates that undocumented immigrants who have committed serious crimes are the main target, but also considers domestic terrorism a top priority and establishes that the contractor must shift priorities when necessary. In response to these actions, United Auto Workers, Communications Workers of America, and American Federation of Teachers unions filed a lawsuit last week against the Departments of State and Homeland Security for ideological surveillance of immigrants in the United States using artificial intelligence, alleging that they seek to punish the views of their opponents. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Abigail Jackson issued a statement alleging that left-wing organizations fueled violent riots, organized attacks against law enforcement officers, coordinated illegal doxing campaigns, arranged drop points for weapons and riot materials, and more. Since its founding in 2003, ICE has deployed a sophisticated arsenal of surveillance technologies, ranging from biometric databases to wiretapping tools. How its new acquisitions will be used remains an open question. Oregon Democratic Senator Ron Wyden told the Washington Post that the agency is still drafting usage policies and only gave its staff a briefing on the matter in mid-September. All right, so I'm going to read here some of the companies that they contract and what they do. So you got B12 Technologies, smartphone iris scanning, Clearview AI facial recognition, Graphite, Paragon Solutions spyware, Penlinks, Tangles, and WebBlocks data systems, and then Immigration OS. I think to me the most startling is Graphite. The article says, and the initial $2 million contract will give the agency access to software designed to hack into smartphones and extract data remotely, even if the phones are locked or communication is through encrypted apps. Graphite can gain unauthorized access to cell phones without the user's or the owner's knowledge or consent, allowing access to encrypted applications, the phone's location data, messages, and photographs. That's according to members of Congress Summer Lee, Chantel Brown, and Yasmin Ansari in a letter on October 6th to DHS. So the kind of shit that they're pulling, I think you might have mentioned this a bit last week, is straight up diabolical and really leaves nobody safe from privacy. They say they're going after so-called criminal immigrants, which we know that they aren't.
It's a dragnet.
Yeah. And they're going and they say, well, we might use it for domestic terrorists, which all of us are labeled as, so by the United States government. So really, who's safe? Who's safe from getting your phone searched, your text messages read, your location tracked, your iris being copied? Literally nobody.
My favorite part of the article was them saying that they're going to be looking for folks on Google+.
Oh yeah, and MySpace. MySpace and Google+. There's nowhere safe anymore, guys. Delete your MySpace pages. They're gonna get you.
Well, guess the top 8 is coming back to bite us.
Yeah. MySpace is still technically around, but Google+ is gone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, what we just learned with the Graham Plattner stuff a week or two ago, that one of these companies can just straight up store and scrape all your data, even for deleted text messages, deleted accounts, stuff that's been so-called erased. I mean, they always say, you're online, anything online is permanent, but...
They got text messages from Graham?
Or not his text messages written in text.
Okay, yeah.
They didn't scrape his texts.
Yeah, because they were probably scraping Reddit as it was being published. So before it was deleted, they had an archive of it.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, I was always told, don't use your real name online, and don't put any of your personal information in any field online. But specifically with Plattner, you don't even need to be that specific. They were able to find his username, not because he posted his name anywhere on it, but from enough other evidence, him being in the the Marines and then the Army in the years that he said he was, where he shared like enough information where they were able to like build a web of it. So, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like a company similar to this was behind it to have been able to like put a prompt in to find some sort of a description of the account, which is wild. It's what Edward Snowden was telling us and warning us about in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is just the next step of that. From the Patriot Act in 2002 to Snowden 2013, here we are, just as far away as Snowden's releases were to the Patriot Act as we are to Snowden. And nothing has really changed substantially.
No. I think this is just the reality of what we're facing with the fall of the empire. The more and more our national hegemony falls, the more and more this country's cracking down on dissent, on anyone that has any inclination to an idea that isn't prescribed. NATO itself is going through all of these problems that they're facing throughout Europe. Everything is shifting. And AI, tech, it's all coming back to haunt us. What happened to the good old days where we can just pass a note and not have to worry about somebody seeing it pass from 1,000 miles away? Mm-hmm. Now you can't even send a text without fearing it ending up in a database.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Patriot Act, the surveillance on the public, of course, initially racially profiling, but now, just broadly speaking, is field tested on the Palestinian people as their live test subjects by Israel in order for the United States to use it abroad. This phone scraping is what they used I've said this in previous conversations. This phone scraping is what they used in order to identify new targets in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan in order to send special forces out, just break in people's houses and kill them randomly. Mm-hmm. And it's all, the identifying targets is all guesswork. And we already know that AI can't do it well. So, when they decide to actually do something, how much of a problem is that going to be for us? Not even us specifically, us, the working people in general. Connolly declared President of Ireland after landslide win, October 25, 2025, via BBC. Catherine Connolly has been elected the President of Ireland after a landslide victory. She has become the 10th President of the Republic of Ireland after defeating Fine Gael's Heather Humphreys, who had already conceded to her rival. The result, long clear from early tallies, was officially declared at Dublin Castle. Connolly, an independent who is backed by the major left-wing parties, pledged to be an inclusive president for all in her acceptance speech. The 68-year-old from Galway has been a TD, a member of the Irish Parliament, since 2016. She'll be taking over from Michael D. Higgins, who has served the maximum 2 terms in office. Connolly secured 914,143 first preference votes, 63%, a record in Irish presidential election history. She made her acceptance speech first in Irish and then in English. "I'll be a president who listens and reflects and who speaks when it's necessary," she said. "I'll be a voice for peace, a voice that builds on our policy of neutrality, a voice that articulates the existential threat posed by climate change, and a voice that recognizes the tremendous work being done the length and breadth of the country." Dublin correspondent Gabia Garavetskat said Connolly was the anti-establishment candidate who took on Humphreys, the government's pick. She said in recent weeks, Connolly had been insisting her campaign was a movement. She has now won a clear mandate from the people. Humphreys won 29% of first preference votes, while Fianna Fáil's Jim Gavin, who withdrew from the race but remained on the ballot paper, won 7% first preference votes. Cavan Monaghan was the only constituency won by Humphreys, who had represented it from 2011 to 2024. Humphreys, who spoke after Connolly, thanked everyone who voted for her campaign team, and Fine Gael for the nomination. "I know Catherine will be a president for all of us. Catherine will be my president, and I want to wish her well. This is her evening," she said. The President of Ireland is the country's head of state. They represent the country abroad, take centre stage at major national events, and are responsible for ensuring that the Constitution, the set of rules for government and politics, is followed. While the President's powers are limited, the office holder's influence can be profound. Connolly will be inaugurated on the 11th of November, with Higgins leaving the office the day before. Higgins said he had rang Connolly to congratulate her on what is a momentous day for her and her family. The President-elect will have the full support of this office as she prepares for her inauguration next month, he added.
New President of Ireland.
Very thrilled.
Love it.
Socialist Connolly. Great name.
Great name.
I'm really, not to say surprised, but excited about the prospect of what this means for United Ireland, specifically. The last elections in Northern Ireland to have their representation was in 2022. And in that election, I'm not sure if you're aware, you probably are, but Sinn Féin, which is the center-left main party in Ireland, won the most number of seats. And they were, for a long time, very closely associated with the IRA during the Troubles. Mm-hmm. So you got Gerry Adams.
Allegedly.
Who was the leader of the party for a long time.
Yeah.
And now it's Mary MacDonald.
I believe so.
Her name. And they did a push for Northern Ireland. Now this is the first time that folks from Sinn Féin have won any seats in Northern Ireland. Famously, we had Bobby Sands back in the Troubles. I think it was the 1970s.
Yeah, 1970.
Win an election. But their strategy back then was that if Sinn Féin wins an election, they will not send the representative to the parliament in the UK, in Britain. And ever since then, Sinn Féin has had the policy for the members of Northern Ireland not to take seat in Parliament after winning victory. So along with winning the most number of votes and winning the most number of seats in the last election, it's really gearing up for like the conditions on the ground for finally uniting Ireland after hundreds of years.
Love the sound of that.
And just one clarification, Bobby Sands never took his seat in Parliament because the entire time he was in office, he was in prison, where he died.
Before he died on a hunger strike.
Yeah. And I mean, this is fantastic news, especially following up last week's news in the north of Ireland that the soldier F has been acquitted of all charges. He's found not guilty for murdering people on Bloody Sunday in 1971. So the first paras went to Belfast, into the Bogside, shot down 14 people, and then got medals pinned on them. If I'm not mistaken, they're also in Kenya during the Mau Mau Rebellion. They're like evil guys, of course. So the Queen Elizabeth gave them all medals, and they finally dragged the one guy to trial and declared he was found not guilty, because British justice in the UK does not extend to the Irish people that they have occupied. So having a united Ireland means that for the first time in centuries, the north of Ireland can have a real chance at peace and a real chance of justice. And, not to mention the fact that the new president is looking for that more than just for Ireland, but also for the world. She's terribly anti-NATO, very anti-Israel, and for all the right reasons. And so she's a socialist. The original IRA were socialists. Their goal was always a 32-county socialist republic. The first Red Army in Europe did not come out of Moscow, but it came out of Dublin in 1916. It's the first socialist revolution.
Easter Uprising?
Yeah. And so, while these various groups have held various degrees of socialist thought, the Provost kind of wanted it, kind of gave it a shot. There's some criticism about their true socialism there, and then you have the INLA, who are real socialists. But the original IRA were socialist. So this is carrying on a very hundreds-year-old long tradition. I don't think it is a coincidence, of course, that she's named after the first socialist leader of Ireland, Connolly, who, of course, kicked off the Easter Rising with his Red Army to create a united socialist republic. So.
Before being hanged?
Yes.
Oh, shot outside the prison?
I want to say he was shot. I really should know.
I think they shot him.
I think it was shot, yes.
Yeah.
Belmar prison? What's the name of that prison?
Balmora?
Right?
I think so.
Good story. If you don't know about it, what we're talking about, definitely look into it.
Yeah. We don't have time for me to tell it. I wish. But this is absolutely fantastic for Ireland, for both the Free State and the North. So, and I know you probably have some comments about seeing socialist leaders and.
It is nice to see an actual socialist leader get elected in Ireland. It's showing that there is still hope for the movement. It's showing that there is hope for the world. I know recently, back towards the beginning of the year, we saw Australia shift left as well. So the waters are nice for some change. And for this to be happening in Ireland, moving towards a unified Ireland, I feel will definitely prove beneficial to us.
Yeah. And Connolly's also, great for her that she's a fluent Irish speaker. I believe she's a native Irish speaker. She gave her acceptance speech in Irish.
First.
Yeah, in Irish first and then in English, which is fantastic to hear. The Irish language has been persecuted for literally centuries. It's the reason why they all speak English. But she's also pro-neutrality. And so she's going to maintain the Irish tradition of both neutrality. And it's no surprise to me that the first real socialist elected in Europe in a very long time came out of the Third World. Many people are reluctant to accept it or straight up don't even know, but Ireland is a third world country. Ireland is one of like 5 third world countries in Europe.
People probably don't understand what you mean by that.
I'm about to explain. The 3 worlds, the first, second, and third world, are not about poverty or development, but are about the first world, which is the capitalist world, the Western aligned world, the NATO-led world. The second world is the Soviet-led world, nowadays arguably the Chinese-led world. And then the third world is the non-aligned states. So in Europe, traditionally, that would have been Switzerland, Ireland, Sweden, not Norway, Yugoslavia, which no longer exists, and Austria. And so out of that, Ireland comes out again as a socialist and maintaining neutrality between the NATO and I guess maybe BRICS frontier, and marking a clean path forward for the non-aligned movement.
Yeah, during the Cold War, these terms were a lot bigger. I think Libya was part of the non-aligned movement for a while.
I believe so.
Before, basically being forced to pick a side. But yeah, so I'm glad you were able to explain, what you meant there by third world, because a lot of folks will just have a connotation or a bias of like third world equals poverty, as opposed to neutrality.
Yeah. And of course, this is hopeful, very optimistic for the Palestinian movement. Traditionally, Ireland and Palestine are blood brothers. The Palestinians and the Irish are the same people group, in their perspective, brothers by bloodshed, and
against the British Empire.
And I could get into this too, but I won't. So having a real socialist, a real neutralist, a real anti-Zionist, anti-Israel demonstrator who is overtly pro-Hamas, she correctly identifies that the political wing and the political action of Palestine cannot exist without the armed resistance and without the Islamic resistance of the Hamas movement. And this really means that Ireland, which has long been clamoring for complete cessation of ties with Israel, might actually be able to see that get done and hopefully lead the way for the rest of the English-speaking world. If you enjoy our shows, consider supporting us by becoming a member at solidaritytelevision.org. U.S. Abu Dhabi governments to invest $1.8 billion with Orion into critical minerals, October 23, 2025, via Reuters. The U.S. and Abu Dhabi governments will invest $1.8 billion into mining and refining projects across the globe with private equity fund Orion Resource Partners to bolster Western access to lithium, rare earths, and other critical minerals. The investment plan announced on Thursday comes as market leader China crimps access to critical minerals, even as demand jumps globally across the economy, forcing manufacturers and others to jostle for fresh supply. Investment aims to counter China's mineral supply restrictions. Orion Critical Mineral Consortium targets $5 billion in growth and focuses on production-ready projects to supply the U.S. and its allies. Really short article, but I think it's really important to understand the Western relationship with a number of these countries and the way that we access those resources. So lithium, we discussed a little bit earlier, accessing lithium and other rare earth metals, really important for the future of technology, especially if we're going to continue on this path of battery-powered cars and electric cars and all these high electric consumer, small individualist items. And one of the ways we do that is through these mining and drilling projects, private equity, and resource extraction in the global south. And in order to keep our American hands clean, we subcontract out typically Canada, but increasingly in Middle Africa, we've been subcontracting the UAE and Saudi Arabia, but especially the United Arab Emirates. And they have been the ones, really pushing for violence and the neocolonialism in Sudan, in the Congo, in Yemen especially, in Somalia, and I think Ethiopia as well. They've been the source of money behind this resource extraction and this war and the conflict that keeps the people from being able to have these resources for themselves. The money generated by mining lithium in Congo is not kept by the Congolese, just as the money generated by mining coal in Pennsylvania, in Kentucky, and West Virginia was never used to benefit the coal miners. Only this time, the cobalt and lithium barons are Emiratis instead of Americans. So this is, we discussed last week how these private equity firms are a disaster, and we're using them now to cooperate with the UAE to do this. What's really interesting to me is this article never actually mentions the UAE, only the Abu Dhabi government.
The governments, yeah.
Yeah, very strange to me. I don't know why they do that specifically.
It doesn't say the Washington and Abu Dhabi governments.
Nope.
It says the U.S. and Abu Dhabi, yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, UAE is the United American Emirates, if we're being honest. And, they're a slave state, open slave state, with in which the rich engage in open debauchery and exploitation and all manner of crimes against the public, while also using this money, like this $1.8 billion, to destroy Yemen, destroy Sudan, destroy Congo, destroy Congo-Kinshasa specifically, Somalia and Ethiopia, and impoverish these countries and steal everything they have for Western interests.
Yeah, for the time they may be aligned interest, and they may be thinking that they're doing it under their own interests, but it's definitely under Western influence.
100%.
And we're willing to let slide these crimes. I mean, the United States would be working tirelessly to oppose slavery if Russia had it, if Iran had it.
You know when the United States released its last slave?
It has slaves right now.
Well, like a house slave type thing. The last slave that was freed in the United States was in 1945.
Wow.
I forget his last name. His first name was Alfred.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
While we were fighting the Nazis is when we actually freed the last slave in America.
And people
Not counting the 13th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And people think so much that fascism is just something new in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, a lot of African American troops going over in World War II to fight in Nazi Germany, and the Nazis would leaflet out of planes onto the black companies of like, what are you fighting for? You're going to go home, after this, and you're going to be treated as a second-class citizen.
Korea and Vietnam did the exact same thing too when we were destroying their countries. Although what's interesting on that note is that Patton would specifically use black troops to be police for the military in order to guard checkpoints and such, because then if Germans stole American uniforms and were a little too friendly to the black soldiers, because they wanted to get into the base, black soldiers, this guy isn't racist enough, let's light him up. And that's how they would maintain security. Fun fact. But yeah, but because it's the UAE doing slave labor and human rights abuses, but they provide us with oil and provide us as an air base for wars in the Middle East. The UAE has been described not as a country, but as a British air base and airport and shopping mall disguised as a country. And we use it as a military staging ground for war in Iran, for war against Iraq, and for war in Palestine and in Yemen. So.
Alfred Irving.
Irving?
1942.
42, okay.
So it was the beginning of World War I, not the end.
Yeah.
Or two.
Yeah, or halfway through, depending on who you ask.
Your context, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so there we go, UAE. Israel launches renewed strikes in Gaza less than 3 weeks into Trump's ceasefire deal, October 28, 2025, via NPR. The Israeli military began carrying out renewed strikes on the Gaza Strip on Tuesday, less than 3 weeks after President Trump brokered a ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said there were initial reports of at least 9 people killed and injured in Gaza City and the southern city of Khan Yunis. The attacks came as Israel and Hamas traded accusations of violating the ceasefire that began on October 10th. The office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that he had ordered immediate, forceful strikes in Gaza following a meeting with his senior security ministers. They discussed what the response should be after accusing Hamas of attempting to stage the return of the partial remains of a hostage whose body the militant group was supposed to hand over under the terms of the ceasefire. The Israeli military released drone footage that it said showed Hamas operatives burying a bag with remains in the ground so that the International Committee of the Red Cross could find them. Netanyahu called the move a violation of the U.S. negotiated ceasefire. Hamas said in a statement that Israel's allegations were baseless and aimed at misleading public opinion. It said, "The occupation is seeking to fabricate false pretexts in preparation for taking new, aggressive steps against our people, in blatant violation of the ceasefire agreement." Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said in a statement that Hamas would pay a heavy price for attacking Israeli troops in Gaza and failing to return deceased hostages. On October 19th, the Israeli military carried out a series of airstrikes in Gaza after 2 of its soldiers were killed in Rafah. After those Israeli strikes killed dozens of people, Trump said the ceasefire was still in place. Hamas said it had no connection to the shooting of Israeli soldiers in Rafah. It said it would stick to the ceasefire and called on mediators to take immediate action to press Israel to stop its attacks in violation of the agreement. Vice President Vance, who recently visited Israel, said he was confident the ceasefire would remain in effect despite the violence. That doesn't mean there aren't going to be little skirmishes here and there, Vance told reporters on Capitol Hill on Tuesday. We know that Hamas, or somebody else within Gaza, attacked an Israeli soldier. We expect the Israelis are going to respond, But I think the president's peace is going to hold despite that.
We all knew the ceasefire was bullshit. We all knew that Netanyahu was not going to ease up on the bombings for any given reason.
It lasted 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Not even that, really. They just launched a series of new strikes into Gaza 3 weeks into the ceasefire deal, and Israel has consistently just kept bombing the whole time during this whole ceasefire proposal. And yet, for some reason, somehow, it's all Hamas's fault when Hamas did everything asked of them, everything in the agreement, the returning of the hostages, the full 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, anybody who has anything negative to say about Palestinians needs to go take a quick, long look in the mirror, because at this point, it is now undeniable that this is a genocide.
Oh, yeah.
To be totally factual, there is one thing that Hamas hasn't been able to fully hold up on their end of the bargain, which is the bodies of some former, I'm pretty sure they were prisoners of war, not hostages.
Yeah.
Were in Rafah being held before it was destroyed, and are now buried under untold tons of rubble. And the only way that they have, and they've been upfront about this the entire time, the only way that they will be able to retrieve these bodies are with heavy machinery, which aren't allowed into the Gaza Strip still to this day. So sure, there's that one thing that Hamas hasn't been able to fulfill, but there is very good reason for that. You know, you give them the tools to do it. They said that they would be willing to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're not given the tools of the job.
Yeah. And the whole frustration, I mean, the article here talks about how Israel's like, oh, they're not giving up the bodies, they're re-hiding them for someone else to find, is just nonsensical. Why? Who would want to hold on to a dead body that they already said that they didn't want to hold on to and wanted to give back?
They've given back all the dead bodies.
Yeah.
Why? They have a necrophilia obsession or something?
Now, I'm convinced that the Israeli story is probably that, the bodies are going to show signs of torture. I don't know, something like that.
Like the Palestinian bodies?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So when they returned the bodies of the Palestinians, when Israel returned the bodies of Palestinians they had interred and killed in prison, the bodies showed obvious signs of torture and abuse.
Some of them were still tied with hands behind their back.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
So Israel's brutality, like you said, it's undeniably genocide. The brutality against Palestinians, against Palestinian prisoners, hostages, honestly. These are not war fighters who are captured in the course of battle like the Hamas prisoners are, but are Palestinian women, children, and men ripped out of their homes, ripped off the streets, and abducted and taken away to rape and torture prison camps, and then raped and tortured to death regularly. And every accusation is a confession sort of thing. I believe that this is the Israeli understanding of why these bodies aren't being returned. Or perhaps they think that it's something they can hold on to for bargaining chips later on. I don't know.
So the clarification, the bodies are under the rubble from Israeli airstrikes, right?
Yes.
So Israel killed their own people.
Correct.
They're denying the excavators and all the heavy equipment to retrieve their people, and it's still somehow Hamas's fault.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah. So the hostages are...
like the bomb last week. The unexploded ordnance.
Yeah.
There was a UXO somewhere?
There was an unexploded ordnance in Gaza last week that an Israeli tank drove over and caused the death of 2 IDF soldiers. And then they blamed it as an attack from Hamas.
And
so I was wondering if that was the cause for these airstrikes.
The article says that they were attacked. It could be the same incident. my thought is, if anything, either trigger-happy IDF soldiers are shooting at each other, wouldn't be the first time that's happened, or hopefully not the last, or the criminal
When they
groups.
shot their own people waving a white flag.
Yeah. And of course, Israel bombed the hell out of
They
its own
fired
house.
on their own people waving a white flag.
Yeah, so back earlier on in the war, I think in 2023, possibly early 2024, a number of Palestinian or Israeli
I remember that.
hostages were either let go or they escaped. They weren't pursued, and they came out and said, "Hey, they're waving a white flag like, hey, we're Israeli, and the IDF just gunned them down. But the IDF has no problems killing Israelis as long as it pursues the ultimate Zionist goal of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. Hannibal directive on October 7th. They bombed the Nova Festival. They bombed their own kibbutzim and killed who knows how many of the victims of October 7th, killed by Israeli munitions.
So desperate to commit an ethnic cleansing that they ethnic cleansed their own people.
Yeah, well, anything to, they'll burn down the whole house. It means it can catch Hamas in the flames. And, and the other very realistic possibility is that the ISIS-affiliated Abu Shabaab gang that is armed, supported, and covered by Israel is, again, up to no good and trying to wreck the ceasefire on behalf of Israel. So I would not be surprised if they have been requested to, again, this I don't know, this is speculation, but it would not surprise me if these gangs were getting involved in firefights with the IDF, either because they're like, oh shit, Hamas is going to get us, and so they try to go to their lines, which are, of course, the IDF's yellow line. The IDF won't take them because they're racists, and also they're ISIS gangs, who would. And
Israel.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, they did. They literally did.
It's not the first time either.
Yeah. But, so yeah, the ceasefire is not holding, even though Vance and everybody else thinks that it might. Obviously, of course, he just wants it to hold, so that way Trump looks better. No, honestly, if Trump looks
It
good,
looks bad on them.
yeah. If we can get a real ceasefire and it makes Trump look good, I don't care.
Yeah.
They can give him the peace prize if it seals the deal.
As long as it seals the deal.
Yeah. Otherwise, what the hell's the point? Hey, if you're enjoying the episode so far, you should consider supporting us at the Patreon link in the episode description. Thousands of Starbucks workers could be set to go on strike. Here's what to know. October 23, 2025, via CBS News. Thousands of Starbucks workers are gearing up to vote on whether to go on strike next week. The strike authorization vote is set to begin Friday and will remain open for several days, with Starbucks Workers United expected to share results after voting ends. Employees represented by the union have staged 2 national strikes over the last year, most recently in May to protest Starbucks' new dress code. Thousands of workers also walked off the job in December of 2024. As the voting gets underway, the union is also planning a series of rallies and pickets over the weekend outside Starbucks stores in dozens of U.S. cities. Starbucks Workers United Union originated in Buffalo, New York in 2021 and now represents 12,000 workers in approximately 550 Starbucks cafes across the country. A union spokesperson confirmed that contract negotiations between Starbucks and Workers United began in May 2024 but fell apart in December. The group entered mediation in February, which ended 2 months later with Workers United rejecting Starbucks' contract proposal. The union says it secured 33 tentative agreements from Starbucks, but maintains that the vast majority are non-economic proposals. The union spokesperson said the coffee giant has since refused to come to the table with a new proposal that meets workers' demands, which is why negotiations have stalled. For its part, Starbucks says it has engaged in nearly 200 hours of negotiations, but claims that Workers United ultimately presented union members with an incomplete outline of single-store contracts to vote on. Workers United only represents around 4% of our partners, but chose to walk away from the bargaining table, Starbucks spokesperson J.C. Anderson told CBS News in an email statement. If they're ready to come back, we're ready to talk. The workers' demands are threefold, according to the union: increased hours and higher take-home pay, as well as a resolution from Starbucks for what the union refers to as unfair labor practice charges for union busting. Too many baristas still aren't getting enough hours to pay the bills or meet the threshold for benefits, the union says in its statement of demands on its website. Starbucks Workers United has filed hundreds of unfair labor practice charges against Starbucks with the National Labor Relations Board, including over its dress code. The union has not specified the size of the pay increase it is seeking. Starbucks said employees receive a $30 an hour in pay and benefits. Store managers, or coffeehouse leaders, as they're referred to by the retailer, are salaried. The company contends that nearly 85% of its employees work their preferred hours. Susan Sherman, a distinguished professor at Rutgers School of Management and Labor Relations, said previous Workers United strikes have had a limited effect on persuading the company to return to the bargaining table. The basic problem is that not enough Starbucks stores are organized yet, so that a strike inflicts serious financial or publicity damage to the company, Sherman said in an email. Last month, Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol announced that the company was shuttering certain locations, cutting about 900 jobs. The closures affected 59 union stores, according to Starbucks Workers United. In a letter to employees at the time, Niccol framed the decision to close stores as part of a Back to Starbucks plan, an effort he initiated in 2024 to revitalize sales and foot traffic at the chain's coffee shops. The plan includes adding more personal touches to the customer store experience, like handwritten notes on Starbucks cups. Starbucks Workers United has openly questioned whether Niccol's strategy is working, whereas Starbucks has painted the plan as a success. The facts show that Back to Starbucks is making the experience better for both customers and partners, Anderson said. We've invested more than $500 million to improve our coffeehouse staffing, training, and support, on top of offering the best job in retail, with pay and benefits averaging over $30 per hour for hourly partners.
So there's a Starbucks strike coming up in the next couple of weeks. Likely Starbucks strike. And Riley and myself had the pleasure of joining some of the workers up here in Pennsylvania at a practice picket just a couple of weeks ago. October 4th, I think, was the date. We were able to go and meet some of the workers that are gearing up to go on strike with our just practicing for a just contract picket. The craziest part to me about this whole thing is that the workers' wages, like what they're asking for in a new contract, equates to 1 day of sales. A single day of sales at Starbucks covers everything that the workers are asking for in their contract.
Wow.
Yeah, like on top of that, Brian Nichols, the newest CEO of Starbucks, because they've had several CEOs over the last couple of years, is the most paid, the most disproportionately paid CEO of any major American company. He's paid 6,666 times what the average partner makes at a Starbucks.
Everyone loves to insult a barista, but look how much all the baristas in the United States and even the world is making one guy.
He hasn't even made me a single goddamn coffee.
Right? Slacking.
But yeah, as a leftist, I've been following the Starbucks Workers United organizing for the last several years. Mm-hmm. When it started in the Buffalo area. My favorite version of Solidarity Forever has been Billy Bragg. He went to one of the first Starbucks strikes out in Buffalo and performed on the picket line with them. And they don't really sing Solidarity Forever out in the United Kingdom, so he only really knew one verse. And he gives a little bit of an intro and then sings the one verse, and he's like, I don't know the words. Who's coming to save me? And a barista comes up and knows, all the verses, and
nice.
They go through it together. And it's the first verse is, there is no power weaker than the feeble strength of one. And, the beginning of it is, I think, exemplified where, like, Billy Bragg, famous leftist musician, is, trying to stumble over, Solidarity Forever. But the song really picks up when someone else comes and is able to, give their voice to the song. Maybe we'll throw it in the description of this video. But yeah, so for the last several years, following it has been great. But organizing here in Northeast Pennsylvania, we've made connections with some of the workers at Starbucks. We have members in the DSA that work at Starbucks.
Yeah. The only time I've been to a Starbucks in the last couple of years as a result of this was when one near me finally got unionized, and I went in only to say congratulations and to give them, I think, your number.
Yep, and that was the first, what really got the ball rolling. But one of the partners that ended up joining DSA, we had also knocked on their door and canvassed for some of the immigrants' rights work that we're doing out in Luzerne County. So, we had that one initial touch of like, DSA was here, they left a flyer on my door to, someone coming in and being like, hey, congratulations. If you'll need any help, reach out. But, even the local Starbucks Workers United organizer is a DSA member from another part of Pennsylvania. But it has allowed us to like really work together to like show up on the picket line for them. And we've done another couple of actions, a single one, but we plan to do another one before the strike actually happens, trying to push a petition not to cross the picket line for Starbucks shoppers if the workers do go on strike in the next couple of weeks.
Growing up, my mom comes from a really big union town, and one of the few lessons that I learned while young that I've still kept is there are a lot of lines you can cross, and picket line is never one of them. And so as long as I still want to get my $3.50 inheritance, but yeah, all jokes aside though, if there's a strike at a local Starbucks near you, don't cross the picket line. Join it.
Even if those workers aren't on strike, there are other Starbucks workers on strike, and by not crossing the picket line at a store that might not be unionized and might not be on strike, can make all the difference as well.
Yeah. So if they go on strike, boycott Starbucks completely.
Anything and everything.
Completely.
Don't even look at it. Don't look at it.
Close your eyes.
Unless you show up to the picket line, then you're allowed to look at it.
Yeah. Then you have to look at it. Blood splatter from RSF massacres in Sudan visible from space. October 28, 2025, via the Middle East Eye. Satellite imagery appears to show large bloodstains covering the ground in the Sudanese city of El Fasher in North Darfur, amid reports of extrajudicial killings committed by the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF militia. Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab, the HRL, published the images on Tuesday, showing dark reddish-brown patches covering the ground in several areas where the RSF are reported to have shot residents. The patches are consistent with the discoloration caused by blood drying, as well as reported movements by RSF fighters. At least 3 of the reddish instances have objects nearby measuring approximately 1.3 to 2.0 meters, consistent in dimension with human bodies, the HRL report says. Yale HRL has identified multiple credible reports of mass killings in El Fasher across social media and open sources. There are multiple reports of civilians dying while fleeing El Fasher, including due to wounds incurred by the RSF. The militia stormed El Fasher on Sunday, sparking killings and abuses that have been recorded, in many cases, by RSF fighters themselves. One video shows an RSF fighter firing a Kalashnikov-style rifle at an unarmed elderly man on the ground. The RSF advance came just hours after ceasefire negotiations in Washington collapsed. There are hopes late last week that the U.S.-sponsored talks could achieve some sort of breakthrough. However, sources told the Middle East Eye that the United Arab Emirates, which is the RSF's most significant patron, refused to address the situation in El Fasher, which has been under siege for over 500 days. RSF fighters on Sunday entered the city where around 260,000 people have been trapped, capturing an army base and causing the defenses to collapse. The RSF claims it is in control of the city, describing the capture as a decisive turning point, after the paramilitaries had lost significant ground to the Sudanese armed forces in recent months. Also on Tuesday, The Guardian, citing UN documents, reported that the RSF has used British military equipment. British manufactured small arms targeting systems and engines for armored personnel carriers were recovered from combat zones in Sudan. the revelation is likely to increase scrutiny of the British arms exports to the UAE. Abu Dhabi supplies the RSF with weapons, funds, and mercenaries, as well as political backing and negotiations to end the conflict. I might have said before on the show that the UAE is one of the top 5 evil countries in the world. And if you need any more evidence, or if you don't believe me, or because that's never crossed your path before, look no further than Sudan. If Yemen didn't convince you, Somalia didn't convince you, this will. I mean, we have bodies piled up and so much blood running through the streets. We can see it in satellite images in Al-Fashir. The RSF, backed by the UAE and using British equipment that was delivered to them by the UAE, are committing mass slaughter, ethnic cleansing, and outright genocide in Darfur. The Darfur genocide has been a word on people's lips for a few years now, largely forgotten, largely uncared about because the population is black, and the United States does not seem to have any direct involvement in it, and that's good enough for everybody to turn their backs on it.
It also did look like it was going to get better for a little while.
Yeah.
With 2019, they overthrew the government in Sudan. So there was a little bit of hope there.
And just recently, the RSF were thrown out of Khartoum, I believe, and out of the presidential palace. So things were looking a bit nicer or more optimistic.
Yeah, and then basically the last 2 years has been a resurgence of the RSF. Yeah, and just this week they had taken over Al-Fashir, the capital city for the region. And it was the last stronghold of the Sudanese government in the region. So now, with the region basically totally controlled by the RSF, there are fears of escalating the genocide, if that's even possible, because the numbers are otherworldly. How they're like able to literally gun down is like the main mode of execution. Tens of thousands of people a day in some cases.
I believe 2,000 people identified as being gunned down by the RSF on Monday.
Yeah.
In Al-Fashir.
In one city. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So there's talk about potentially a breakaway state now that they control the entire region. It's really something that we got to keep an eye on. But pressuring the U.S. government, there is limited effect there. Especially we saw it with trying to pressure the government with the Israeli genocide of the Palestinian people, where we're directly, sending the bombs, sending the money in order to keep this going, and we still, had minimal impact on trying to push the elected representatives to not back a genocide. So with the extra layer of separation, with it being funneled through UAE, I'm sure any of our politicians that we would speak to, at least locally, they would have very minimal understanding of this whole context and how we're involved in any way, which is the point.
Yeah. The one small glimmer of hope here is one of the same that we saw in Gaza, and that is Ansar Allah, the Houthi movement in Yemen. The people of Yemen are the ones who are standing up against Saudi Arabia outside of Sudan and against the UAE in order to stop the RSF as best that they can. The Yemenis are no stranger to the brutality of the UAE and their mercenaries. The RSF were trained by the UAE
And Wagner. And Wagner.
Yeah. And the same Emirati trainers also trained the militant organizations trying to destroy Yemen, and have, as of yesterday, sent them into Gaza in order to train the Abu Shabaab gang in order to start a similar civil conflict as in Yemen and in Sudan in Palestine. Yeah, it's according to the state media of Ansar Allah. They just revealed that yesterday, that they have tracked these guys down to Palestine now. And the Yemenis are some of the poorest people on earth.
After the genocide.
Yeah. And they've suffered mass starvation, mass slaughter, war, oppression, starvation. I think I said that already, but it's worth mentioning again. The famine, so-called famine in Yemen, is one of the worst humanitarian crises of the last 10 years. And despite that, they have not stopped in their fight against the oppression and against the Western and Western-backed militias and states that are trying to crush legitimate sovereignty in the Middle East region, the Middle East and North Africa. So Yemen is producing all of its own munitions to fight Israel, to fight the UAE, to fight Saudi Arabia, to fight the United States, all of which they have won against. They have
in some capacity at least, yeah. In some capacity at least, yeah.
They have beaten Saudi Arabia, they've beaten the Emiratis, they've beaten the Americans, they've beaten
How many
Israelis.
F-35s did we lose there?
Yeah. Well, technically speaking, according to us, we didn't lose any to Yemen. They fell off the ship and we accidentally shot them down with our own missiles. But it's okay, we can just replace them with another $20 billion or how much they cost.
It's Trump change.
Yeah, Trump change, yeah. That's, we were able to buy them from Argentina with those Argentine pesos that have now.
Yeah.
So it's a small glimmer of hope in the international solidarity movement that a lot of these reports are being disseminated from Sudan and from El Fasher are being disseminated into the Western media, not by Western media voices, but by Palestinians, by Yemenis, by, of course, Sudanese, who've been there the whole time documenting it and publishing it for us. Well, really for themselves, so that way we can maybe do something about it. And the Palestinian people in Gaza are incredibly heartbroken and incredibly pained for their brothers and sisters in Sudan. The Yemenis have literally experienced the exact same gunfire. And who's it coming from? It's coming from American interests in the region. The Emiratis being the right hand and the left hand, really, of the United States. Israel's the right. And quite literally by the British government, who has been sending arms, ammunition, and machine parts and weapons of war to the UAE, which are then immediately being found in Sudan. Of course, the UAE continues to deny they have any involvement. I ask our viewers to give an alternative explanation as to how the Emiratis are getting UK equipment and then immediately seeing them vanish into Sudan. If anyone can give an explanation, I would love to hear it. But it's, the Palestinian movement has been accused multiple times of, why are you ignoring the Congo? Why are you ignoring Sudan? And were those statements being made in good faith, they would be, to an extent, good points. But the reality is these are all connected. And quite literally, so it's the same players. It's Israel, it's the United States, it's Saudi Arabia, it's UAE, it's the UK, in Gaza, in Yemen, and in Sudan. Well, in Palestine in general, not just Gaza. Yeah. And it's the same players fighting back. The Palestinian resistance, the axis of resistance in Palestine, fighting against those 5 players. Yemen fighting against those 5 players. Sudan fighting against those 5 players. All of them, one hand supporting the other. And the United States has been able to separate the struggle into 3 and then 4 at the Congo, which is slightly different, not very different situation, but slightly different players in the Congo. And they've been able to separate these into separate fields, separate feeders that allow us to ignore the others. But thanks to the unyielding bravery and commitment of the Yemeni people, of Ansar Allah, and the Yemeni army in general, they are keeping the struggle as one unified struggle, like we mentioned earlier, between the Yemenis, between the Palestinians, and between the Sudanese against the Western imperial forces and their compradors in the Middle East.
So one of the things that I'm noticing too, we now have 2 active genocides that's taking place.
At least.
You can argue that what Trump is doing here falls within Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. Mm-hmm. So it's 3. Where's the 4th? Where's the 5th? This is what we are rapidly approaching with all of this going on. We look at history as our greatest teacher, and during World War II, depending on how you look at it, Europe and Asia suffered 5 genocides: the Holocaust, the Operation Barbarossa, the 2 bombings over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the massacre of Nanking. We're seeing the very same things happening now. And at what point in time does the concept of never again actually mean something, and this shit is put to a stop of?
Well, of course, the never again slogan always meant never again for white people. White people can never be victims of genocide again. Non-white people, everyone else in the world, the global south, who cares? But my friend Ahmed Hassan from Yemen reminds us that the immense brutality of the UAE against Yemen did not start to draw back until Yemen hit the UAE. And now the people are clamoring for the bombing of Aramco in Saudi Arabia. His advice is for Sudan to hit Dubai or to hit Abu Dhabi. And that, in his perspective, will help break the RSF. And I mean, this is a guy who kind of knows what he's talking about. He's been fighting the war for the last couple of years. So hopefully it doesn't have to come to that. Hopefully we see slave rebellion in the UAE and the overthrow of the Emirati government. But time will tell.
Indeed it will.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of The People's Report. Don't forget to follow us at solidaritytv.org. Organizing the working classes of the world in solidarity forever.